So, Harriet, before you became the CEO and chairman of IBM Asia Pacific, you were very involved in the Watson program, right? Describe a little bit about that, what your involvement with Watson was.
So, yeah, I joined IBM and was privileged enough to be involved in the whole use of Watson around huge data constructs. So, Watson IoT, which has benefited a large part of Singapore here. Watson customer engagement, many of the customer-facing and supply chain uses of Watson that hopefully we'll talk about, and also in education as well. So it enabled me to relearn, reskill, and really understand some of what hopefully we're going to talk about.
Right. So, in other words, you know a lot about IBM's AI capabilities. So, in your current role, as you look out at the rather large territory that you're responsible for, as you look at companies, clients, non-clients, where are we in the adoption rates of these kinds of advanced technologies, AI, augmented learning? Are we still, kind of at, the beginning, or are we at more of a scaled adoption?
So I think if I take where we are, and that's relevant to the community around us, I think we've come a long way from since Jeopardy.
Right.
We've got over 20,000 different engagements across 20 different industries as clients experiment with AI. Now, in real terms, only about 1 in 20 of those across the region are really scaling. And so 2 of the key areas that we're working with governments, with companies, are around, first of all, our own experience of scale around HR. So we have used AI very extensively inside of IBM with a very large workforce around the recruiting, the training and learning, compensation, career management, and the shaping of the business. And that is really AI at scale. We've made huge savings, $400 million US dollars over the period, whilst higher engagement in a very large workforce. As you know, we're in all but a few countries in the world. And the second one is around the whole supply chain, from sort of quoting right the way through to collecting cash, really streamlining and improving the client experience for our customers.
So, as a CEO, can you say that the use of AI has really changed how you think about the work that your employees do? Has it helped you make decisions that you might not have made as a CEO 20 years ago?
Yeah, I think if we think about what AI is, it's a technology that has, that can demonstrate many of the human characteristics, whether that's debating, whether it's, we heard our earlier panelists talking about this. And what AI does, by taking the data and by creating insights, is it allows us to have that data to augment our own experience, our own decisions, our own capabilities. So for the longest time, as you know, IBM talked about cognitive because we didn't think it was artificial intelligence, it was the augmenting of intelligence. So I have seen myself that using this data really helps us make better hiring decisions as we take everything we know about individuals, and with their permission, we're a company that totally respects the data of others, with perhaps their social media, and tries to find the perfect match for them. I've also seen in the management of careers, and I've seen directly in our supply chain how having this data helps make us a better partner.
I just wanted to follow up just on something you said about hiring and hiring decisions. There have been these cases in which AI just replicated some of the biases that we know exist. How do you ensure that that doesn't happen in your hiring process?
That is such an important point, Mark. I think, we're a company wedded to really strong ethics around truth, around openness, trust, and no bias. And so our whole culture is predicated on really profound things like a client's data is a client's data, a client's insights are a client's insights. They're not to further some extraordinary knowledge graph that, is competitive. And so in the capabilities that we have, last year we launched a set of capabilities that really allows us to sort of explode the black box of decision-making on AI, really helping companies understand the decision-making process, right the way through to a very simple dashboard that helps you explain the decision, whether it's in an insurance company or wherever it may be, the decision that has been made, and that this be done without bias. And so this is hugely important, that these ethics that again, the panel earlier were talking to, and the way that each individual company manages this extraordinary technology, and how we train people, and the whole sort of jobs discussion that I'm sure you'll get to.
So let's talk a little bit about some specific AI applications. I think we all know AI is used to help me figure out when I want to see next on Netflix, or annoying Siri will sometimes, tell me something that maybe I don't actually really want to know. But what are some examples that you are seeing out there about how AI is being used in ways that we may not recognize?
Okay, I'll give you two that are kind of, I think, extraordinary, and perhaps you would expect, and then two you probably wouldn't. State Bank of India, an entire digital platform, and 11 million users, and 40,000 new clients a day using AI-powered apps to reach a segment. It's beyond banking that improves the lives of farmers. They call it their Krishi, Yono Krishi, because it enables farmers with very simple, not smartphones, to manage maybe a tractor loan with a couple of clicks, which means that loan sharks and other such things cannot proliferate in some of those rural regions. So an example of enormous scale, the Yono digital platform, but some of the applications that take it beyond banking. Another would be the Lotte Group. You enter one of the Lotte fashion stores, and this amazing assistant, an AI assistant, helps you with the millions of products and fashions and capabilities that exist out there. Two you may not be aware of that I think are how you take the data of years of experience, years of knowledge, as to what, in advertising, what adverts really work. If you look at the new global Lexus ad, which I understand is powerfully driving sales, that's taken from 15 years of what ads work and don't.
That is so interesting. Before we went on stage, you also told me a little anecdote about how it's also being used in other creative industries as well, movie trailers, for example.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
Which I think is fascinating.
The movie Morgan, the trailer, which again analyzed years of not just movies, but movies trailers as to what works. Fashion. In India, clients who are taking, again, at great speed, the data that's available, the sentiments that exist, and creating really fast fashion for a large population.
So the panel before us spoke to this a little bit, but and I wanted to get your perspective as a senior executive at an AI company. And Haslinda stole my line about quoting your boss, Ginny Rometty, saying, 100% of jobs and industries will be affected in some way by these kinds of technologies. How do we ensure that large numbers of people aren't left behind and jobless when these jobs are eliminated, which inevitably will happen? There will be, new jobs created, but a lot of jobs may go away.
Indeed, and I think we feel very strongly that this is a very important responsibility. I mean, at a high level, and I'll talk about two specific examples of what we're doing here in Asia Pac, here in Singapore as well. But we do believe that every role, as the panel talked about earlier, will be dramatically influenced by AI. Really emancipating some of our creativity and being a multiplier, a force multiplier for our intelligence. So we have a very positive view of that influence, but we are taking real, firm, solid actions to ensure that people are not left behind, that this is not the technology of a few, that it is the technology of the many. So the first is around our P-Tech schools. Over 112 now around the world, where perhaps underserved individuals are given a fast track of technology, business mentoring, business problems to solve, so that they're job ready very quickly. We're our 9th last week in Thailand. We announced our 5th country of P-Techs as we help in the scaling of that. And perhaps to an even greater level, our work in India, 4 million teachers, 1 million students, and 200,000 young women, not just a tick in the box and can you pass this after a day, but really intense STEM training, life skills. In fact, my whole team 10 days ago were in a rural part of India in a school teaching code. I actually wasn't teaching code. I was teaching something else, but teaching the girls how to think about using this technology in their villages, in their lives. It was extremely positive. So we have a responsibility. We take it deeply seriously, and we're making enormous progress in creating this, what I think Ginny calls the new collar skills
right.
that are absolutely at the core of every nation's issues.
But is it really realistic to expect that we'll be able to reskill everyone? You know, let's say in the not distant future, there'll be a bot that can replace me. How am I going to be reskilled, you know, to work? You know, someone who's been working for 30 years, can I be taught something new to get, you know, a job in this new world?
Let me give you an example in my own case of something we already referenced. As I get help in the hiring, how we career manage many of our colleagues, how we really get much more tuned around compensation. I'm not doing all of that analysis. I'm delivering the messages, I'm interacting, I'm, as the first panel said, I hope, demonstrating empathy. But then I can go and use that time and some of my creative skills on better business development. 2 hours with clients across the 15 countries of Asia Pac. And so I think it's not about replacement or extinction or apocalyptic Armageddon. It's about emancipating our creativity and doing work that often we don't get to, work that in some way enhances the world in which we live.
Right, right. Well, I hope you're right, for all our sakes. You mentioned the 15 countries in your region. You don't oversee China or IBM in Japan, but undoubtedly the countries that you're working in have been affected or will be affected by the ongoing trade war tensions that we see in the region and between China and the United States. How is it affecting the work that you do? I mean, for example, are you thinking about changing your supply chains? Are your clients thinking about how their supply chains may have to change or may change? How is it affecting the work that you're doing?
So I think, as you know, after 108 years as a protagonist of global trade, we continue to really support all aspects of the free movement of people, of data, and of our capabilities. And right now, as you and I discussed, across the region, we're seeing not just AI, but great cloud solutions, blockchain, which is in Asia Pac becoming one of the leaders in the world in blockchain. We are not seeing the dampening of the practical enthusiasm or the work to allow these technologies to both improve productivity and drive growth. So we continue to push for free trade, and we're not seeing impact at this time.
Okay, that's interesting. You mentioned the cloud. Earlier this summer, the Red Hat acquisition, one of the largest deals in tech history, $34 billion, I believe, was completed and propels IBM into cloud services in a way that you haven't been before. How important is this hybrid cloud to the future of IBM?
Yeah. Well, we think this is game-changing. It's game-changing for the cloud market as it propels Red Hat, IBM to be #1 in this hybrid cloud environment. And you know, it's true in Asia-Pac. I think it's the case in the world. The clients have only really started to move between 10 and 20% of their workloads to a public cloud. And there's good reason for that. You know, they don't feel comfortable moving all their data, lock, stock, and barrels of bytes to a public cloud environment when 1 in 4 have major issues. So what clients are telling us is it's the complete openness, it's the security at a high level and then at every single workload level. It's the capabilities of open, truly open and not locked in, and really the combination of our both companies' passion for Linux and open allows our engineers to work together with clients to manage their Kubernetes and really create the type of productive cloud environments that they dreamed of. Open, secure, hybrid.
So define hybrid. Hybrid means what exactly?
Hybrid means that clients have already started to explore many cloud providers, some public. Right. They may want to keep capabilities on-prem. They may be already using different types of clouds. And the ability to manage all of those clouds and these really essential core workloads and orchestrate the type of productivity that clients are looking for whilst maintaining the security of these precious workloads creates this hybrid environment. And that is what clients told us. And together as IBM and Red Hat, we think we can really lead the world here.
So you've had a long and distinguished career, and you've been in a number of different fields. You ran, for example, Thomas Cook, one of the largest travel businesses in the world. You know, as you think about your own career, what is the kind of one piece of advice you would tell some of the business leaders, for example, here in this room today? We all know that change is happening sooner than you think, right? And that we personally have to remain relevant. How do we think about our careers? How do we think about the way that we prepare for our jobs and also for our companies? How do we ensure that we remain relevant in this time when change is happening so quickly?
Okay.
How did you do it?
Well, I'm not sure we're done. I don't think anyone's ever done. But I
Right.
think there are two pieces of sort of counsel and input that I would give. The first is around kind of the business and business objectives. You know, with the data that is sort of exploding inside of companies, the data you have, the data you want, the data that's available, the platforms and the change that we're talking about, I think it's really, really critical to pick one or two kind of problems you're trying to solve, business objectives, and then work to develop a minimum sort of viable product, and then through whatever agile thinking, garage method, and then very quickly scale that to really see the benefit to the organization, to break it down into bite-sized business chunks of problems you're trying to solve. And then the personal advice is, I think all of us at this time have to be relearning, reskilling. you know, I have to, in an amazing technology company like IBM, I have to spend a couple of hours every day making sure I understand for clients what are the capabilities, what are the risks, and what are the issues, whether that's, you know, the journey to cloud modernization, whether it's the cognitive enterprise. And I think that's exciting. That's what, in a nutshell, AI is enabling, that we are able to do that and support others to make that transition.
Well, thank you very much, Harriet. I appreciate your participating today. Thank you.
It's a great pleasure. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.